In the next 10 to 12 years, approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a third grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
President Biden, do you support reparations?
Well, I mean, since I haven't spoken on this at a chance, number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination. They're ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is that not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America. Systemic racism that has plagued our nation for far, far too long. I said that over the course of the past year that the blinders have been taken off the nation, the American people. But what many Americans didn't see or had simply refused to see couldn't be ignored any longer. Those 8 minutes and 46 seconds that took George Floyd's life opened the eyes of millions of Americans and millions of people around all over the world. It was the knee on the neck of justice, and it wouldn't be forgotten. And it's not white Americans' fault, but just a fact.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
We are owed $104 trillion on the very low end, plus $735 billion recurring. This number does not include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when Sean D. Rochester's book, The Black Tax, was published, nor the cost of Black life, nor the cost of living increases, nor the war on drugs, nor the current day pandemic. The number I'm working with is for slavery Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives. Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the mountain. Good evening in the central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the reparationist perspective, bringing you those ADOTs. I don't know why we getting all this buffering, family. I am not pleased. I see you, Terrence. We meet again, Mike. Yes, your hostess with the mostest is back. Okay, now listen, I'm talking about a topic today that ScrewTube doesn't want me to talk about, but it's imperative that we have this conversation, family. I did my best to disguise the topic in pig Latin, but so that I can have this conversation, because I'm just over a lot of the misinformation and us, anti-vaxxers being accused of giving folks with the vaccine, which is supposed to be protecting them. They're blaming us that their vaccine is failing. AXER-VAYS is failing. I'm going to try not to say these words because this is the quickest way to get censored and to get your video shut down. So if there is buffering, it is not me. There's a lot going on with those of us in the new Black media who are trying to spread the word and get it out. I wasn't able to go live on Facebook, like I call it Racebook. So there's lots of things happening as we're trying to get information out to get all of our people on their square and on code. It is a lot of pushback, family. So bear with me. I'm going to do my best to tiptoe through these tulips, but I've got some very important information to give to you about the OVK. And I want you at the end of our time together to be able to make an informed decision about whether or not you want to fool with the jab. Okay? That's what we'll call it, the jab over here. You deserve that. And I want you to be able to quantify this information in such a way that you can make the best decision for yourself, your children, and your loved ones. And you can also share with them what you've learned today, because I'm sure it's going to be new for many of you, because the corporate with 3K's mainstream media is not telling you and putting things into context. They are giving a bunch of numbers and not giving any context. So we're going to contextualize things today. So welcome one and all. Please feel free to chat amongst yourself. We're only live on YouTube today. So hopefully Facebook got the message. My comrades over there, and they'll file in as they get a window, but it'll at least be archived. So let's get into it. So let's start with the origins. Okay, now I can't see your chats right now. I'm over here viewing slides and different articles to try to make for a more seamless show. But as usual, I'll be back on that side to read your comments and what you have to say. So basically, let's talk about the origins. Now, I'm going to be doing bullet points, and I'm going to be telling you where I'm reading from, so that if you want to go and pull up the articles after the show, you're free to do that, okay? But let's talk about the origins of this, okay? Because many people feel that they've had COVID. Uh-oh. Hold on, family. Something's trying to... Wait. Hold on.
Make it work harder. Make it your
I'm trying to figure out where that noise is coming from.
Get a total value of $3,000.
Okay, I had to let that article go because it was making too much noise. So let's start from the beginning. So in the very beginning, now we were told that this coronavirus was originated from the Wuhan, China wet markets, that bats were the reason why, this COVID thing had spread all throughout the world. Well, when you're ADOX in this country, you believe half of what you see and none of what these people tell you. Because we have been victimized. We have had medical apartheid, medical bias appropriated at us, leveled at us from all the different directions. And just a couple of examples are the Tuskegee experiment, where they lied and said they weren't injecting us with the syphilis. And ultimately, the CDC absolutely was injecting us with syphilis and not treating us. Look it up. I don't have time to do everything. I'm going to give you bullet points on the things I've learned, leveraging some of these titles from these different news outlets to make my point and to give you an opportunity to make an informed decision about whether or not a jab is for you. I am an anti-vaxxer. I don't even take the flu shot. But I've got some things I need to share on a personal front. So let's get into it. So anyway, we were told in the beginning that this originated from the Wuhan, China bat labs, wet markets. And that this has something to do with the bats. Well, when I looked up a movie starring Gwyneth Paltrow and Matt Damon, the theme was exactly the same. The name of the movie doesn't come to my head right now, Pandemic or something like that. I can't recall the name. I'll try to get it for you before we retire for the evening. But when I watched that movie, now that movie was done around 2011. Ultimately, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but it mirrored the story, the same story we were giving about the wet markets and how this coronavirus originated in the Wuhan, China wet markets. I'm telling you, when I give you the name of this movie, some of you may know it. If you know it, put it in the chat. If you've seen it, you can understand the parallels for a movie that was made in 2011 that now all of a sudden has come into fruition in 2020. It was just struck me as this feels made up. This feels like a lot of the Hollywood films, which if you look at them close enough, they're telling you a story of what's coming, which means it's being created before it's created for TV and film. Okay. Another thing that alarmed me was hearing that Oprah Winfrey walked out of a session with Bill Gates talking about population control. All of this before 2020 was going down, and I learned about it almost simultaneously when the country was being shut down. What has been now, 18 months now, or a year, yeah, about 18 months. So all of these little parallels in this wet lab kind of thing that was being pushed on us as to the origins of the coronavirus. Fast forward to 2021, and then Fauci is in the hot seat. Come to find out, he was changing the name of the gain of function research to get government dollars, our tax dollars, to literally create coronavirus in the labs, in the Wuhan, China labs. And that's how they were able to amass around $50 million, the last report I saw, to create the coronavirus in the Wuhan, China labs. They did it by disguising the name and changing it and flipping it around. But basically, gain of function research is about creating different viruses to come up with the other racket called vaccines. Okay? So basically, they were creating it. They claimed they didn't expect it to, impact the world in the way it negatively has. But that's really what gain of function research is. So this is my first talking point on this whole issue. Instead of mandating it for the layperson, why not outlaw and criminalize gain of function research? You know why they won't do that, family? It's all about the Benjamins, right? They want to be able to make money and lots of it. And the world is not cooperating. As I mentioned on yesterday's shows, 2 African leaders and 1 Haitian leader have been executed. They weren't for vaccines in their country.
And now they're gone. And of course, the corporate lamestream media wants us to believe there's no relationship. You can believe what you want to believe. But I'm just going to leave that right there. Okay? So gain of function research, we later learned after the Republicans grilled Fauci that this was actually created in a lab. In the beginning, also, we were told not to wear a mask. Fauci claimed we didn't need the mask. They want to conserve these masks for the medical profession. There was a shortage, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so this thing finally shows up and hits this country and slams it. You know, some of us got ahead of that and got proactive. And of course, here in California, Gavin Newsom shut the state down. And although the numbers were starting to rise. Now, let me help you with something. Lots of people, myself included, thought we had COVID. I thought I had it as early as October 2017 because a bunch of the symptoms mirror COVID-19. And I had severe acute bronchitis, borderline walking pneumonia. But I had it twice, October 2017 and then again first quarter 2019. And lots of people had stories like this. For the first time ever in my life, I got deathly ill on 2 occasions. My doctor gave me a Z-Pack. And, the first time I just had the Z-Pack and it lasted, the bronchitis that is, lasted 5 months. The second time I contracted severe acute bronchitis, borderline walking pneumonia, I allowed her to give me 3 days of injections, which were antibiotics. And the Z-Pack. So then it only lasted 2 weeks. I tested for antibodies to see if what I thought to be true was so, and the antibodies test came back negative. So that meant to me that I didn't have COVID. Okay. I don't know if anybody else got the antibodies test. I'm just speaking from my personal experience. So this thing hits and it starts to crush the Black community, right? It starts to crush us. And, we're dying disproportionately. Well, what they failed to tell the people is that we're dying because we don't have health care. And the way I found out specifically why we were dying was because my nephew was almost near death. He contracted COVID and went to the hospital on the Black side of town, who damn near refused him a COVID test, even though he was displaying the symptoms. Sent him home to quarantine for 14 days. He was in touch with his private doctor every day as he got progressively worse. Now, my sister already had to fight just to give him a COVID test. So what you saw in the beginning, family, was lots of us dying because we were told not to wear a mask and we were turned away from COVID tests because there weren't enough of either. Okay? That's what you were seeing, these alarming rates of death in our communities. So my sister, because my nephew, let me go back to that story, was with his private doctor having these kind of Zoom talks every day, and the doctor's monitoring everything he's trying to tell him to do. Now, this happened to lots of our people. We showed up, they refused a COVID test because we didn't have enough. And if you were Black, I don't care if you had insurance or not, they were absolutely not going to give you a COVID test because there were too few in the nation. And they wanted to say that for white folks and immigrants who identify as white, money folks, the elitist. They didn't want to give it to the layperson, not the Black layperson. I'm just speaking about ADOX right now, okay? So anyway, the doctor was able to monitor that none of the things he was trying to give my nephew at this late stage of the COVID was actually helping him. And so he was the one to tell my sister to take him to the hospital, okay, because he was not getting better. And so she took him to the hospital on the white side of town. Instead of going back to the white doctors on the Black side of town, that were refusing him a COVID test, that were not admitting him into the hospital even once he tested positive, sent him home to quarantine for 14 days. So she takes him to the white side of town. They immediately admit him into the hospital. Now, she couldn't stay in the hospital. Okay? She had to literally take care of her son outside in the parking lot. That's another reason why many of us were dying. They took away our only advocates. Our parents, grandparents, whomever loved us was not allowed to stay in that hospital. And if the hospital was acting in a nefarious way, you couldn't even get a phone call through to your loved ones, okay? And so she was out there every day, in between working, to make sure she kept her thumb on the pulse of his advocacy, which far too few of us have. We don't have people that can sneak off the job to come sit in the parking lot and make sure the doctors are on their job when it comes to treating our family. Well, this particular doctor, because he had advocacy, gave him remdesivir. Now, I don't know if you recall remdesivir being a hot topic about not being able to rid you of the COVID symptoms, because once it's a virus, I don't think you can ever be cured of it. Listen, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm talking personal experience that the doctors nor the CDCs are reporting when I get to the vaccine segment, to the jab segment of this show, this broadcast, okay? Those remdesivir treatments were $5,000 a shot. They had to administer that to him for 5 days. They kept him in that hospital for a week. Thank God for remdesivir, the very thing the corporate lamestream media and the CDC and whomever else had a say in it were trying to say did not work. But nobody said that when Trump and the elite were taking remdesivir. So once again, this is why I fight along with my comrades for reparations. Because being poor makes you a target in every metric of life. Because we didn't have money, because we didn't have jobs with benefits, this is why our people caught hell when it came to COVID. They're not about to give you mask or COVID test or remdesivir when these things are, limited in supply and you're black. Let's keep it a buck. And so thank God my sister had the wherewithal to advocate for her child, her son, and he was able to live to see his 32nd birthday. Okay? So I'm going to get to this part last. We're going to talk about factors that contribute, but I want to get all my facts and information out the way. So let's fast forward to today. Because during that period, I had a lot of colleagues share with me that they had COVID and treated themselves at home. And because, truth be told, it's like the flu or pneumonia. They even have a pneumonia that they call the coronavirus pneumonia. So a lot of people were treating either with a doctor or they were treating with hot toddies. I mean, it runs the gamut of the way people were treating themselves for COVID once they contracted it. Many of them refused to go to the hospitals. And why was that? Because they were hearing stories of their family members being turned away, not being treated with remdesivir, and slowly but surely the story started coming out where Black folks, family members were going into the hospital for a totally unrelated reason, for a totally different comorbidity, right? They would get up in that hospital and within a few days, they're getting the call. Your family member has COVID. No, you can't come to see them. Then they're hearing that their family members are being intubated. Then they're hearing that their family member has passed away. Then they're being told they cannot perform autopsies. So how do we know when this data is saying that we're dying disproportionately from COVID? How do we know that it's actually COVID when there were other underlying conditions and we could not perform autopsies? answer me that in the chat. So when you start with the lie and you say that this was a byproduct of the Wuhan, China wet labs, let me make sure y'all still over here. It gets a little scary. Oh, okay. You're still here. Thank you for still staying in there with me. But yes, so when you're telling us, you start off with the lie. You start off with telling us, hold on one second, people. I got to get back to my stuff. You start off with the lie that this was created in a wet market, right? And then you start to hear the stories that resonate more like the truth to explain why we were dying disproportionately from COVID. So it makes everything else unbelievable. So they're talking about not being able to perform autopsies. They've got to have closed caskets or cremation or whatever. I mean, the list runs on forever. Okay, so let's fast forward to December. They start to give, the people in this country the vaccine, the jab, okay? They start to give the jab, right? And so they're starting to give this jab, and everybody's trying to convince us as a people who've been through medical apartheid to this day, okay? We've been through medical apartheid to this day, and medical biases, and we've got a lot of comorbidities. We've got a lot of obesity. We have a lot of elders, and they're trying to convince us to take this jab. Now you're dealing with Gates, who's involved with the jab, and I just shared with you at the top of the show that he is all about population control. You're dealing with Fauci, who lied about its origins, who lied about the 50 million or more that was spent to create this in a lab. And you're dealing with a jab that from the time they shut the country down in March of 2020 to December had only been 9 months? Now people want to argue me down and say, well, this thing was in the lab being created for 20 years. I don't know how long this thing has been in a lab being created, but what I do know is that you've got a man-made solution for a man-made problem, for a man-made creation. Okay. And so I wasn't about to even entertain this jab. Every milady, with respect to my health that I had concerning bronchitis and pneumonia, was able to be cured by the Z-Pack and what have you. And so there was no way I was entertaining it. And clearly, quite a few of our people are not entertaining it to this day. So let me read you the stats. This is from the CDC website. Well, this is kff.org. Yeah, is this CDC? I don't want to lose this chart, but I do believe this is kff.org, and it's dealing with race, ethnicity of people receiving a COVID-19 vaccine in the U.S. as of September 21st. That was yesterday. Out of the entire U.S. population, 61% are white that have taken the jab. Blacks are 12%. 12% of our 41 million has taken this jab. Hispanics, 17%. Asian, 6%. And Hopi is 1%. And other 1%. So, the numbers of us throughout the country have pretty much kept steady with this chart from when I looked at it, I think around January or so. We're not fooling with the jab. And so let's talk about what they decided to come up with next. Because we're not, by and large, taking this jab throughout the country, Biden and Harris, who were anti-vax under Trump, flipped the script and are now making mandates that certain groups of people get the jab. They are encouraging corporations to make it hard for you to stay in the workforce if you don't jab. They're making it difficult for you to go to concerts in different venues where there are large masses of people. They're just trying to make life a living hell for those of us who opt out of taking the jab. Even though, let's talk about it, Duke University, which was predominantly, vaccinated. It was enforced on their campus that you absolutely had to vaccinate. In the first week of classes, 304 undergraduates, 45 graduate students, and 15 employees tested positive. All but 8 of these individuals were vaccinated. All but 8 of 304 individuals were fully vaccinated, and the vast majority of them were asymptomatic. A small number have minor cold and flu-like symptoms, and none have been hospitalized, according to the university. Now, it's a very different story over in Israel. In Israel, at the time I checked last about a week or so ago, let me see if the article is here. Hold on, family. Welcome to the live. Please like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. Okay. Hold on, family. I'm looking up my article on Israel. Okay, I can't find it, and I don't want to belabor the point, but Israel had such a major breakthrough of the Delta variant, is what they're calling it. They had such a major breakthrough that they are now requiring third boosters, even though the World Health Organization is against boosters at this time. I think if you have underlying comorbidities or you're a senior, you can get a third booster, but everyone agrees now that the Pfizer jab, which I call it the big pharma funded, FDA approved in 9 months jab, because big pharma is absolutely funding the FDA. Now, don't you find that to be a conflict of interest? So even though they're having breakthroughs in record numbers all throughout the country, Biden is mandating that the nation get vaccinated and mandating that the corporations come down hard on those of us who refuse to get the jab, right? Even though these people are having breakthrough infections that are causing their hospitalizations, there are a myriad of reports dealing with people who have died after taking the vaccine. There are myriad reports of people with debilitating, life-altering side effects. These are things the doctors nor the CDC are even taking into account. I've had one sister friend share with me about a sister friend of hers who caught a heart murmur after taking the jab. And there's so many stories of our people who have shared with me about what happened with them. One of my sister friends' grandmother had a heart attack. Like, there are so many stories. I will be here all night to count all of them. But I'm just telling you that we are in our right frame of mind. What would that be? 82% of us aren't fooling with it? 10, 12, 10, 12. No, 88% of us are not getting this jab, okay? Because they're hearing now of the data that's not being reported. We're getting the data on the grassroots level. Our friends, our colleagues, our family members, loved ones. Everyone's sharing their horror stories about this jab. And when they go to their doctors with these issues, the doctors are not recording it. So they go to the CDC, and the CDC is not taking a record of it. The CDC, of all the cases that were being reported, only document 1% as being related to the jab. So basically, we're getting mandates for a jab that folks all the way up the food chain know is ineffective and that it wears off, and that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th jabs will be required. So in effect, they didn't tell our people, nor the nation, nor the world, that we are still in the trial. It takes on the average a good 12 years for any vaccine or drugs to be approved through the FDA. And there are people quitting the FDA because of how fast this was walked through. Okay? So you have to look at this situation with your third eye and understand that until this government receives a 1,000,000% return on its investment of $50 million in this creation, those mandates are going to be there and they won't make sense. My daughter's school, for example, pissed me all the way off, requiring weekly COVID tests of the unvaccinated, while all of these breakthrough infections of the vaccinated are happening. She told me something like 800 kids that were asymptomatic were sent home. So this disproportionately impacts us in the workplace and in education. I call it a pandemic for a reason. This is what this is doing. It is harming us disproportionately. And I'm so glad that 88% of ADOCs is on their square, 10 toes down, and not fooling with this. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, but I don't get in the way of people who choose to jab, and I resent and detest this government and the lamestream media and the scientists who are coalescing around, forcing me and those of us who refuse the jab to jab or to not know life as we once did, to be denied access to certain restaurants, to be denied access to the movies, concerts, travel, if you don't have this passport. But it's not logical. It doesn't make sense that you can clearly see it's not effective. You will clearly say and admit that it's ineffective, but you're going to insist and mandate that we do it. Now, what's also ironic about this is that it's mandated for the layperson, but not the elite. Congress doesn't have to jab. Now, there have been members of Congress who've had COVID, and even the Trump had COVID. Now they treated Trump with remdesivir. The very thing they keep telling the public would not work that actually saved my nephew's life. Recently, I've heard of a story from one of my colleagues that her 36-year-old niece went into the hospital because she was exhibiting symptoms. She literally had to beg to stay, and they refused to give her remdesivir. They intubated her, and she died at 36. So basically, they want to call me misinformation, shut me down from sharing my own personal stories and accounts of other people's personal stories. They call us misinformation. I call them misinformation. So the elites are playing by a whole different set of rules. For example, Erykah Badu slipped, and she actually took a video at Barack Obama's 60th birthday party. Okay? Those folks was getting it in without the mask. Not everybody there was masked. It was a super spreader event. Jesse Jackson and his wife were hospitalized with COVID after that party, as were many. I don't know about hospitalizations, but I do know the COVID numbers rose after that super spreader event. Newsom, who had shut the state down, was out having dinner with his friends without masks in a closed environment. So you see concerts and games and all kinds of things continuing on business as usual about that money and around that money, and you see the elite that are getting special privileges. I want to read from The Atlantic. It's time to hold American elites accountable for their abuses. If Democrats want to address simmering middle class anger, they need to deliver justice. Okay. Well, this is about a totally different scandal, but the title is appropriate for what I'm sharing with you. How, well, I can't, Biden, claims he can't make Congress take the jab, okay? So listen, I don't know how you don't have executive power when it comes to your own government, but you can decide for the federal workers of the government that they must be mandated to take the jab. You see? So it is a lot of, this is why 88% of our collective ain't fooling with it. Because we see the holes and the lies and the misinformation happening in all of it. And we believe more in our body's regenerative ability to heal itself. Along with some guidance from the doctor, we'll take a remdesivir, absolutely. But will they give it to us? My colleague's niece recently died because they wouldn't give it to her. So there's a lot of medical bias happening, which is why our numbers are on the rise. And even still, one of my comrades cited that 154,000 ADOX or Black folks in this country have died from COVID. Do the math, out of 41 million. And that's if you believe they all died from COVID and not some other underlying comorbidity. If you can't do autopsies, how do we know? In the very beginning stages, the hospitals were paid $38,000 per COVID death to label everything COVID. And if you can't do an autopsy, how do you know what your loved one really died from? So let me make sure I've talked about all my points before I share with you my solutions, okay? Welcome to the live. Thank you. Please press like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. Give me a second. I want to make sure I went through all my articles. Okay, so this article is saying younger blacks are now dying from the coronavirus, and some hospitals are allegedly sending black patients home to die. That was September 15, 2020. To my point, lots of us were being sent home to die. That's why our numbers are off the charts. Okay. So we talked about that and Newsom and that. We talked about the disparate impact on us. The biopharmaceutical industry provides 75% of the FDA's drug review budget. Is this a problem? Don't you think that's problematic, family? Don't you think that that's why the Pfizer jab was approved in 9 months versus the normal 12 years to approve drugs and vaccinations? Is that probably why the World Health Organization has slowed down on the third booster? Isn't that why some people are quitting at the FDA? You guys can look up these articles. I don't have time to read all of them. Okay, so now let's talk about prevention. Because none of these people are talking about prevention. None of these people are sharing with you that this coronavirus will be as commonplace as the flu and pneumonia and will be treated as such if caught early. You see, if you're sending people back home, black people in particular, what else do you expect but for them to die? You're not being honest with them about prevention. You're not being honest with them about our underlying health issues. Oftentimes, you're not sharing with them that the majority of the deaths are the obese and the elderly and the people you keep sending home and not treating with the $5,000 per shot remdesivir. You're not telling the people what they can do to build immune. All I'm seeing is jab mandates all over the place for a jab that's clearly ineffective after a few months. Wears off. And so that's what prompted me to do this show, because I'm constantly having to defend my regimen. Even though I'm 55 and my doctors told me that my blood and organs are functioning like that of someone 20 years younger than me. So I want to share what's working for me. But also, before I do that, let me share with you what CDC is telling people who have been inflicted with the COVID. If they're asymptomatic, they are telling them not to test for 3 months and to go about their life business as usual. Okay? So say you contract COVID and you were asymptomatic. The CDC is saying, go do your thing. They're not telling us to stay home for 3 months until we produce a negative COVID test. They're saying as long as you don't have symptoms, you can go back into society. Be sure to wash your hands. Be sure to practice social distancing and wear your mask. Let me give you another fact before I get into the solution. Out of 7.8 billion people in the world, 2% have contracted COVID. And of that 2%, 0.00038% have died from COVID, which means 98% of us have not contracted the virus and or have the virus and are asymptomatic, which is why the CDC said, go back, do your thing, just be safe. So when you're diagnosed with COVID, even though you're asymptomatic, the school sends you home for 10 days to self-quarantine. But the CDC is telling you to not take another COVID test after the first one, because for 3 months you may return back positive COVID test, even though you don't have any symptoms. Okay. This is what I'm talking about, family. They are not contextualizing this data. They are trying to build fear in you so you run out here and get a jab that's still in trial, only 9 months since the first jab in this country. That's funded, the FDA approved, because they're 75% funded. They provide 75% of the funds to the FDA. That would normally take about 12 years to put this thing through a trial. We, the people, are the trial, as they make it mandatory for us. And so, yes, our people are dying, young, old, obese, because the hospitals are sending us home to die. There's nothing different between September 2020 and what's happening today. They may give you a COVID test, but if they're sending you home without any treatment, especially depending on the severity of your situation, and they're not hospitalizing you, or when they do, they're intubating you instead of giving you the $5,000 per shot per day remdesivir, then what is the likelihood of you surviving? You don't know. You just, if the doctor tells you go home, how do you know that you're being potentially marched off to your death? You don't have the best of health care. Even if it's free, it ain't the best. When it's free, they're really not trying to give you what matters. Okay? So I want to share with you how you can build your immune. Because as they mandate vaccines, they're not telling you to go build your immune. So that's my job over here at the Reparationist Perspective, to help our people to understand what is actually killing us wherein this COVID is concerned, and why it's critical that we come up with a regimen of self-care so that we can minimize the risk of catching COVID. And even once we do, which I believe all of us will eventually have had this once in different varying degrees. But the difference is the correct immune system to fight it and win, and a weakened immune that's going to lead to your death. So my regimen is organic whole food vitamins, of which I will read off the list momentarily. Organic whole food vitamins. Hydration, hydration, hydration. These great thermos are on sale over on Amazon, and they keep the water cold for days. Okay, this is called INSPI, INSPI. Let me take a sip. Keeps your water cold. That's half the battle with getting it down. I also recommend Stanley Burroughs Master Cleanse with your water. It enables me to get down about 100 ounces a day because it tastes so good. It's a combination of lime, maple syrup, not too much, don't go overboard on that, but just to sweeten it. And there's properties in that maple syrup that are very medicinal. I like the dark amber one. And cayenne pepper, and I put chia seeds in there. I don't know if any of you know what boba is, but a lot of the Asians are now selling these drinks with these little black jelly balls at the end of these drinks. And I love them. Most folks say they don't taste like anything, but I just kind of like having a textured, frozen kind of Thai boba milk tea down here on occasion, treat myself. which is like cream and tea and the boba at the bottom. But I use chia seeds. And so those swell in that Stanley Burroughs Master Cleanse drink, akin to how the boba, they're not as big as boba. Boba is like the size of a marble. And so it's not as big, but I don't know, it's something about having that. And that's great for digestion and keeping your system flowing and keeping you going, which you must eliminate. And the reason why we have issues with constipation is because we're not hydrated enough and we're not eating enough fiber. Okay? Which leads me to my next point. So to get your water down, get the InSpeed or something similar on Amazon. They run this one. I'm not really sure how much this size runs you. I got my daughter one a little smaller. It was around $30, but worth it to keep your water cold because that's the only way I like to drink it. Okay. Listen, you got to get this water down because a lot of why we have other comorbidities is because we're dehydrated. Okay. So a great whole food organic vitamin supplement, the Stanley Burroughs Master Cleanse, you can look that recipe up. Okay. Stanley Burroughs Master Cleanse drink to get your water down. It is so yummy. You can use lemons, limes, or both. I only squeeze 1 to 2 in about, 70 to 100 ounces of water. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is exercise. Now, exercise is critical, especially now. I know many of you can attest to having gained extra COVID pounds from being so sedentary, given that you haven't been in the office. I know I can speak for myself. I get a lot of exercise in the courts. I run around like crazy in the courts where I work. And so it's easy to burn calories, okay? Because I'm in constant motion. But during the pandemic, I have been working the courts from home. So I had to come up with an exercise regimen where I can still burn calories. Because there's nothing worse than not changing how you eat, which we'll get to next. There's nothing worse than not changing how you eat and seeing all of your success with your workouts start to pile on like almost immediately, especially the older you get. It doesn't burn off as quickly. So I'm suggesting to you to start with a brisk power walk. Start with 30 minutes. You don't have to go gangbusters and risk an injury. That's the beauty of power walking. It strengthens you. It strengthens your lung. It helps with your immune. It helps keep things moving. You can gradually build yourself up. I do between 6 and 7 miles of power walking a day, half of which is uphill, at the beach, So I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be strenuous. Take a nice brisk walk, 30 minutes a day. I do that 4 to 5 days a week. Okay? And these are ways that I stay in optimal peak condition, which is why my doctor reports that my blood and my organs are just pristine. This is your temple. It's the only one you get. Okay, family? So you must take care of it. You only get one. Okay? Which leads me to my next point. Intermittent fasting and a keto kind of lifestyle. Not a diet, a lifestyle. Okay? How many of you know that 80% of weight loss is food? Yeah. So if you did your 30-minute walk a day to start, you want to build up, so you can really start to burn those pounds and lose the weight, but start small and build, okay? Well, intermittent fasting is critical to weight loss. And weight loss is 80% tied to your food. My minister put it to me so succinctly. She says, you've got to stop feeding your insulin. For some reason, that resonated with me. So I literally have an eating window between 12 and 8. And during that eating window, I do my best to just have a protein the size of the palm of my hand. I don't do lean. It is the fat in the meat that satiates the appetite and curbs the cravings. Now, there's a lot of vegans and, folks that don't fool with meat. That's not me. I love meat. I love it. So I mostly have fish and seafood. That's my favorite. But I try to make sure if I do steak or short ribs or some type of beef, that it's the size of the palm of my hand. And then I load up on a bigger salad. Like for dinner tonight, prior to coming onto the show, I had this great portobello and Swiss, portobello mushroom and Swiss. It's from one of my favorite sandwich shops, but they call it a sub in a tub. So I told them to keep the bread, and I had the portobello mushrooms, the green onion. It feels to me like one of those Philly cheesesteaks without the meat. Now, I wasn't opposed to the meat, but the portobello mushrooms chew like a meat. And the way they grill the onions and the bell pepper and the portobello mushrooms, and then they put Swiss cheese on that over a bed of shredded lettuce, tomato, and they do it what they call Mike's way with red vinaigrette, a little oil, a little oregano. They got this red pepper sauce that I like on there. And I took the mayo on the side to make a dressing with the pepper relish, okay? Delicious and very filling. So that's the keto kind of way I'm trying to explain to you that you must move towards. You must do intermittent fasting. My window of eating is between 12 and 8. Earlier today, I had this yummy oatmeal parfait where you put the dry rolled oats in a bowl, about this much rolled oats, with about this much vanilla almond milk and about a couple of teaspoons of Greek yogurt, vanilla bean Greek yogurt. And you stir all that up with chia seeds, put that in there, and maple syrup, a little touch for sweetening. And you stir that up and you put it in the refrigerator overnight or for a couple of hours until it kind of swells into like this pudding-like substance. And then you chop up whatever fresh fruit you want over it. I had a banana and I had the golden kiwis. I prefer those over the green kiwis. We have these golden kiwis out here in California. I don't know if you have them back east, but any of your favorite fruit you can put over that yummy oatmeal parfait, whatever you want to call it. Just delicious. And there's so many amazing recipes on YouTube for keto and ways to get the sugar and the refined sugars and the simple carbs out of your diet where you won't even miss it. But if you start to incorporate that slowly but surely, you'll start to see the pounds come off. And understand that obesity is tied to the COVID deaths. Understand that. And make it a priority. So we talked about vitamins, of which I'm going to read you my list momentarily. We talked about hydration. We talked about intermittent fasting. We talked about keto for life. And so I think the last one I want to share with you about is stress. De-stressing your life, de-stressing your environment. You got to get order. I don't know about you, but I can't function in a lot of disorder. I feel lethargic. I feel sluggish. I don't feel motivated. But when my home is pristine and there's order, I just feel great and exuberant and lively, like I can get a lot going. So I feel like it's imperative, family. And you're going to be seeing a show, it may be as early as tomorrow, where I have a new series called For the Love of ADOX and Allies, which, this is going to be tagged under that title because I want you to understand that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so I need you to understand, as spirits, you need a prayer and meditation practice. I may lose some of you on that, but we are highly spiritual people. And I'm just sharing with you that on all 3 occasions, when I contracted bronchitis, borderline walking pneumonia, I had it as recently as August, there was a lot of stress going on. A lot of stress. I won't go into it, but I find that each and every time I've contracted this bronchitis thing, that it's related to stress. And so now what I do at the top of my day is I say a simple prayer. Let me see. Father, Mother, Spirit Divine, from whom all blessings flow. May your angels from whom all blessings flow. Thank you. May your angels take charge over me and my child's life today, that of our caregivers, that of our friends, family, loved ones, and acquaintances, and that of the world. And may your hand of favor forever be upon us. Okay, I say that at the top of my morning, before I even turn the TV on, before I even read my Facebook messages. I have to set the day with that prayer. Sometimes if I'm running behind, I'm saying it as I'm taking my daughter to school. And there's power in prayer. Power in prayer. And so also what I do in this fight, y'all see me turn up over here a lot. I need to get rid of that stress through prayer and meditation, and knowing that of all the agendas that are being pressed upon us as a people, that the God within each and every one of us is greater. No weapon formed against us will prosper. So prayer and meditation is key. Another way I get into the zone in terms of my walk with my inner Christ is I turn on inspirational music in terms of the gospel. They got gospel all over the world. They got it. If you like island music, you can cue up, island gospel. They've got Afro beats. They've got Christian hip hop artists that are thebomb.com. So generally when I'm doing my 2-hour power walk, up and down hills and carrying on, I've got that playing on my AirPods, my little buds that go in my ear. And that's another way to talk with God and to commune with your inner Christ. But those are the 5 things, family, that can help you help yourself in terms of prevention and building the immune to combat and be victorious over COVID if or when it ever hits you or your family members. We're at 7:10, and so that's kind of like my time with you. Oh my God, thank you guys for joining the chat. Let me read my comments from my illustrious guest, Paula Barnett. They're forcing us to rediscover segregation for preservation. Sis, you have never lied. But this time, let's embrace it. And let's be victorious. Like I said, I'm super proud. 88% of us are not fooling with it, no matter how much we are shamed and blamed and all manner of things, family. You guys know, and I'm constantly in defense mode, But I said, let me do this very important video to help us understand that we may not be able to help that we age, but we can sure be in charge of how we age. Okay? Trey Lincoln, what's up, family? What jab did they take? Now, I don't know, family. I don't know that the aunt knew when I asked. I've heard problems with all three of them, though. Now, my doctor's pediatrician said, and each of you have to make your own informed decision based on your health, your underlying conditions, and where you're at. So I'm not here to play doctor. I'm here to defend us anti-vaxxers and tell us to stand 10 toes down and make the case for why we should. I know I am. I'm not about to have this government tell me that a man-made jab for a man-made virus is greater than my body's regenerative abilities from God and the natural antibodies formed therein. I'm not afraid of it. Far too many people I know have contracted it, stayed home, and like I said, had hot toddies or did some of the things I just mentioned, and they were able to turn it around. Okay? So listen, like I said, I believe this will be as common as the flu and the pneumonia. So, family, I really don't know. I've heard complications with all three. My daughter's pediatrician is very much about Moderna because there was a Black doctor scientist involved with its creation. Cynthia Adeyemi, there is an association between COVID-19 vaccine and abnormal mammograms. Yes, sis. Abnormal periods, and now they're trying to force it on our children, 5 to 11. They're forcing it on pregnant women. None of this has been tested, but they're mandating it and saying it's now okay for you to take it when they're seeing breakthrough cases of people not just contracting it, but dying from it and underreporting the data. Cynthia also goes on to say, if you vaccinate, please wait 4 to 6 weeks before getting your annual mammogram. Thank you for that. Like I said, I have no issues with people who choose the vax. I've got issues with people who are trying to make it the fault of us anti-vaxxers as to why they're contracting the COVID when your vaccine should be on the job. That shouldn't be my responsibility if you're getting the jab. Okay? Cynthia says primary prevention starts with hand washing, eat less processed food, hydration, rest, stress, reduction, and moderate exercise. Okay. Thank you, Cynthia. You're on top of it. So I'm going to read to you my vitamin list. Now, yours does not have to be this extensive. Okay, family? As a matter of fact, I hate swallowing all these pills, but sometimes I do half of them one day and the other half the next day. But I'm going to tell you what the main ones are that you should do. You should do, and all of these should be whole food organic. You can order them straight to your home from the vitamin shop. There are other places that are doing the same thing, whole food organic at Whole Foods markets, on Amazon, Trader Joe's. Like, there are ways for you to get your vitamins whole food organic, no synthetics. And I'm going to tell you, the difference is night and day. When I used to take the garbage synthetics when I didn't know any better, I was sick all the time. Nauseous, wanting to throw up, thing of this nature, okay? So no synthetics. Make sure it's organic, whole food, vitamin supplements, all right? So let's get into the list. Let's get into the list. Hold on. I want to tell you mine. The one you should absolutely take. Let me get to the list and I'll tell you which ones I believe you should absolutely take. Okay, family? All right. Let me see here. Elderberry. Okay. Bear with me for a second, please. I got to pull it up. Okay. Multivitamin. for men and women and children in your age group based on your level of activity, how active you are. Organic whole food multivitamin. Now, the beauty of the whole food organic multivitamins is that you don't pee all the vitamin into the bowl. They make you take a 1 to 2 in the top of the day and 1 to 2 at the end of the day. And I never had that golden yellow urine, which basically means you just peed out the multivitamin. If your urine is yellow after you take multivitamins, it shouldn't be the case because you're basically taking an ineffective multivitamin because you're just urinating it out. So make sure you get an organic whole food and the one that is timed capsules, make sure you get those. Also, I take cayenne and garlic. Now, the beauty of the Limeade Stanley Burroughs Master Cleanse hydration drink I just shared with you about, that cayenne is amazingly incredible because these viral diseases that we contract can't live in a heated body. That's what the cayenne and the garlic and the ginger and all of that does for you. It heats up the body where these viruses can't compete. So whole food, organic, cayenne, garlic supplement. D3/K2. That's the one I take. Vitamin D3. Now, that's another health benefit to outdoor activity. The natural vitamin D in the sun. It's very healing, very medicinal. You must get sunshine every day. Okay, you got to get out here. Even if you wear your mask, get out in God's glorious natural vitamin D, the sun, and have your exercise out there. I see the gyms now down at the beach trying to recruit people to come back indoors. Since the pandemic, they've rediscovered how amazing it is to be outdoors. They're out there playing basketball. They're running. They're riding their bikes. It is rich out here to see so many people engaged in their health, in their immune by coming to that beach. It wasn't like that before the state shut down. It's not shut down now, but it wasn't like that before then. It was only a few of us out there getting it in. We were on a first name basis predominantly. But now they're out there in droves and the gyms are losing money because people realize the value in God's natural vitamin D. So D3/K2, get that for yourselves. That's a must-have. Zinc is a must-have. Zinc is a must-have. D3 is a must-have. Oregano oil capsules is a must-have. Black elderberry is a must-have. I don't do gummies, okay? I don't know how effective that is. And vitamin C is a must-have. I also take ginger turmeric. Ginger turmeric, cayenne, garlic, those are options. Multivitamin is an option. But to build your immune for prevention and to be able to fight off if and when you get the COVID, I do believe we all will get it. I do believe that many of us have it and don't know because we have great immunes that are keeping it in check. Lots of folks have been testing positive, have no symptoms. Okay? That's a lot of the kids in these schools. They have no symptoms and they're being sent home. So yes, so once again, multivitamin for your gender and your level of activity and your age group. Cayenne garlic combination, D3K2, zinc, black elderberry, oregano oil, and C. All of these are capsules. Now, some of these come liquid. I don't do well with taste of things. I am a slave to my taste buds. If it doesn't taste good, I'm not going to do it. Okay? Let's move on. Thank you, Cynthia, for adding to the conversation. Cynthia says, cases must isolate and close contacts must quarantine. Well, like I said, Cynthia, the CDC is saying quarantine 10 days. If you're asymptomatic, don't test again until 3 months after, you quarantine. If you're still feeling symptomatic, to quarantine, but still practice, reason. Make sure you wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands. Cynthia says, disorder is draining. You're right. Sage your space as well. Thank you for that. Paula Barnett, proud of that. Oh, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you so very much for being interested in this topic. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Know that I can't go live in Facebook anymore. They are censoring everything I do. I may have to actually take down a couple of the lives I've done. But it's going to come a point, family, when I'm just going to be live, and then this is going to be warehoused either on my website, thereprospect.com. Please make sure you go over there and join my email list in case they disappear me for these kinds of videos. They'll do it. They'll censor you and shut you down, or any one of my posts could get me canceled. They're already coming for me with my videos, in that I couldn't broadcast live to Facebook at the same time I am over here on YouTube. I was able to yesterday. Today, it's a no-go. Okay, and I try all the fixes to try to fix it. That's nothing but the fake checkers trying to shut down my voice. So please make sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. I'm a little over. I think I'm reaching 600. I lost 4,500 when Facebook disabled me. I'm rebuilding. So let's help get me to 1,000, family. Thank you so much for tuning in. And with that said, I'm going to close this out. We're at 7:23, about 23 minutes over my time. But I thank you for hanging in there and receiving the information. And I do hope you share it with your loved ones. Before I want to pray us out. Cynthia said, that means you're effective. That's right, sis. That's when they come for you, you're speaking that TR Ruth and you're telling it like a TI is. You keep doing you love. You know I plan to, Terry Lewis. We've been rolling for a couple years since we got into the movement, right, fam? Oh, I love us black and strong. Don't get it twisted. I love me some y'all, okay? Know that I do this for us. Oh, I have a deep love for my people. But anyway, family, let me pray us out. I could sing an ode to you for the rest of the evening and all well into next week. But with that said, I want to pray our prayer of protection, that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOX and its allies are, God truly is, because why, family? You know it. You are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Until tomorrow, family, make sure you sign up for the Blue Jeans app to join AB 3121 Task Force for Reparations. We're going to be talking about slavery. There's going to be some testimonies over there. We're going to be talking about our migrations to California for the next 2 days. You don't want to miss it. Look up AB 3121 Task Force live in the Blue Jeans app. That's where we'll be starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow. It's going to be rich, rich, and more rich. So please make sure you tune in. I'm going to end the broadcast and do a little typing so that you guys can have that information in the chat. With that said, family, until we meet tomorrow, we'll see about tomorrow. I take it a day at a time, family. Until we meet again, you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening. Peace.